All right. Well, welcome everybody to our first tips and tricks of 2021. Today we're going to be talking about the art of Infinity SOC. Our presenter is a product manager from London, Sergio Silva. Sergio, take it away.
Hi everyone. So welcome to our session today on Infinity SOC. So as Robert said, I'm one of the product incubation managers here at Checkpoint, and one of my favorite products is obviously Infinity SOC. So to give it an introduction, what exactly is Infinity SOC? So Checkpoint's Infinity SOC is a cloud-based platform that is there to enable our security teams to expose and investigate and shut down attacks faster and with high precision. Now, one of the things that Infinity SOC differentiates itself from other sort of providers out there with different types of solutions is that Infinity SOC is a solution that doesn't actually ingest logs, right? So what we do is an elegant way of basically your gateways, if you have Checkpoint gateways, are making requests on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute, second-to-second basis, sending requests out saying, can I actually access this specific IP? Can I connect to this specific URL? And that's basically checked against our threat cloud, which is our intelligence cloud, and it holds all of our intelligence pieces. What we do is we ask our customers to allow us to save those queries. And what happens then is we take those queries and we privatize any sort of private information in there, like internal IP addresses. And we basically start to pull out all of the things that mean something to an analyst or someone who's sitting within a SOC environment. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why do we do it that way, right? So first of all, we're not ingesting that many, we don't want to ingest, millions and millions of different logs. We want to basically go straight to the things that really mean something to an analyst. So if you think about a typical network might have something like 5,000 hosts. Those 5,000 hosts could generate as much as 25 million logs per day, and sometimes even more, depending on the number of hosts and infrastructure that you have within your environment. But even after you filter and you're correlating those logs, the actual number of security events that are left behind can be quite staggering. So how are we supposed to detect stealth malware like your typical APTs within that? So there's sort of two schools of thought or both, using both, and that is the SOCs tend to use log correlation, which is basically using rules to try and filter out, and then they combine those rules into events. And the thing with correlation, it works very well when you're looking for something that you know what it's looking for, you know what you're looking for, right? But one of the things that's guaranteed about correlation is that you miss the attacks that you don't know about, because you can't write a rule for something that you don't know to look for. And then the second approach is anomaly detection. And normally this is facilitated by some machine learning. And that basically starts to baseline some activity or behavior, and then tries to flag anomalies when you change or you variarize your behavior. So the problem with that is that mostly it means very little in terms of security. And this is why anomaly detection is quite notorious for creating false positives. So we at Checkpoint have decided to take a different approach with Infinity SOC. And that's basically leveraging artificial intelligence, which obviously has subsections of that, which includes your machine learning and your deep learning. And that, together with our big data analysis, we are able to actually use our AI algorithms to start to accurately expose the stealth attacks that would otherwise go under the radar. So the learning takes place from ingesting those security events that we have within Threat Cloud. We then apply that artificial intelligence model to the customer events, and the AI model starts to expose those hidden attacks within the logs. So what we've done is that we effectively have tuned Infinity SOC to a level where false positives are kept well below 1%. And this is obviously quite critical to you as an analyst or a customer of the product, because You want to basically learn that the events that we are giving you are quality events and that you can trust and act on them. Which brings me now to the actual console. So one of the cool things about Infinity SOC, it gives you this view that you're currently seeing here, which is an overview of the current posture of your organization. Now, as you can see here, we've got different sort of sections within this page. One of those sections is that we've got the number of malicious activity that we've been looking and inspecting over the last, I would say, 24 hours. And over the last 24 hours, we've actually seen that, that there's been a slight increase in the number of attacks. Now, that could mean that maybe you belong to a specific sector, like maybe today you might be operating from the health sector, and there's a lot of attacks that are currently focused on the health sector due to the COVID-19 or someone having the COVID-19 vaccine. So they tend to attack those. And then you got your sort of regular attacked sectors like finance and defense and those type of sectors. So if you sit in a sector today that is currently being targeted by attacks, you might actually see an increase in the type of infections within the network. One of the things that we also do is we take all of those malicious activities and we basically start to pull out all of the things that we see within the actual requests. And those requests are basically divided up into different sort of categories here. We give you all of the different unique malware families. This ranges from your botnets to your infecting, which is your phase 1 pre-infection sites or post-infection. We've even got some SolarWinds activity going on here, and we've also got some ransomware that's hidden within all of these different malware families. And within that, these are all the indicators that we've seen being requested from the specific network out to a command and control environment, or it could be trying to reach the pre-infection site, which means that they might have received an email within the email box that's got a link, and they go ahead and click on that link, or they're on a web page and they click a specific ad that comes up, which obviously starts to request maybe a malicious infrastructure or part of a specific pre-infection attack. So from all of these, we actually narrowed it down that there's about 38 targets within the organization that are showing malicious behavior. This malicious behavior can be anything from someone trying to reach a malicious site as a pre-infection site, or there's a vulnerable site that's been exposed and they're using that to entice users to go and click on a link that's sent to them, or they're going to click on a link on the actual internet site. And from that, the problem that we face when we're looking at these 38 different targeted assets is that there only could be a handful or maybe just a few of the actual incidents here that actually are more critical than the rest. And this is normally where the analyst spends a lot of their time trying to research and to understand which one of that list of 38 targeted assets, what are the top assets that they need to deal with right now so that they don't get breached, right? So that element of the phase of any sort of investigation can take a really long time because they are looking at the different indicators. They're using different tools to look at those indicators. So tools that tell them what the IP reputation is, what is the reputation of a specific domain, have they found a file? Do they need to, spin up a virtual machine or go into a sandboxing environment to interact with that file to see if there's any sort of malicious behavior from that? So all of this takes a really long time because they're trying to investigate and understand out of all of those different targeted assets and out of all of those IOCs that they happen to be going through, which are the assets that, they need to focus on that are showing the most malicious behavior and they need to act on now. And this is where, Infinity SOC comes into play and really adds so much value to an organization, because from these 39 different assets, we can see, and we have nominated that there's 25 assets ranging from a high confident level that they are actually compromised to others that might have different variant levels of confidence. Maybe they've only tried to reach a pre-infection and we've blocked that connection, but they're still trying to reach to it. So we need to look further into those cases to see what exactly they're trying to do. But the ultimate point here is that once I click into here, I can actually go and see all of the prioritized events that I need to focus on. Now, these prioritized events that we're focusing on that have been divided into these different types of malware families, we can actually go ahead and look over here at this specific widget where we can actually start to see, which ones have had, the most number of machines trying to reach out to it. And we can actually go from here straight into those different types of machines, right? So we can go straight to that incident. Or we got SolarWinds that we're seeing, and we're seeing some activity here from both of these different types of indicators. So this also gives you the ability to see it from a graphical perspective, so you understand the sort of footprint that you're dealing with. We also show you who is, from all of these 25 security incidents, which are the ones that are high priority, high confidence level, that are actually making the most amount of noise. And as you can see, asset 2, for example, is made just in last time slot. It's made something like 10,916 connections. So we really want to focus on the ones that are showing the most activity at this point in time. So when I click into the incident tab here, this automatically takes me into the incident side. And the incident side is really to show you and to give you a list of the different assets that are compromised, and that you need to obviously, do further investigation for you to understand why we've nominated these and prioritized these as being the ones that you need to look at. As you can see here, there's different icons as well. So for example, the icon with a PC screen in there actually is a device that's sitting within or behind my gateway in a data center or behind a corporate network or something to that aspect. We also show you where, for example, if you have machines that are sitting behind a DNS server and they're obviously requesting through that DNS server, we will also show you, those machines that are trying to make requests through this DNS option. And you can see here, we've got infrastructure in the cloud. So we've got virtual gateways that are protecting critical infrastructure in the cloud. And there's different incidents that we can see coming from our cloud infrastructure as well. So it really covers everything. So as incident 2 was one of the most, the most amount of connections, you can see here up to 20,000 connections. I'm taking you now through the process of understanding why we've raised the alarm on these specific type of assets that would have a high confidence level and making the most amount of connections. So you can see here 19,000 connections to these different types of indicators of compromise. An indicator of compromise can be anything from an IP address, a domain name, a URL, or even, for example, a hash, if you have a hash that you want to look up. We then look at the activity of that, and the activity will give us, will pivot us into what I call investigate. Now, because we're dealing with incidents, and I want to basically look at the incidents that have the highest and the highest severity and the highest confidence, I can see here there's 3 indicators here. The infection, which is a pre-infection site. We know this asset is already compromised, so I'm not too focused on that. I want to try and focus on what it's trying to reach out to, and you can see that this has actually got to do with the recent SolarWinds attack. And these are the indicators of compromise that was used during those attacks. So if I click into, let's say, this critical severity and high confidence level, it now takes me into investigate. Now, investigate is our investigation tool. It's got different types of information in here. It's got all the information that obviously comes from Threat Cloud. And as you can see, we've got the domain name. We can pivot even into the IP address. You must bear in mind that attackers are hiding in plain sight, right? They have to set up infrastructure on the internet. They have to use IP infrastructure. And what they tend to do is use IP infrastructure and rotate it depending on the attack that they're running, whether they're using stolen IPs or IPs that are not being used, or they're basically spoofing someone's IP address. So what they do is they host their infrastructure. And as you can see, this specific IP address has a risk of a medium level risk. It's unclassified. But what really makes it interesting here is when I look at the current domain, I can see that this is the current domain it's currently hosting. And I can also see that in the past, it's actually hosted the actual malware that we're seeing right now, where they're trying to reach the specific indicator. So it's really interesting that, we can see what previously was hosted on that specific IP, and you can see that we're blocking based on different signatures from our anti-bot and IPS cards. And this is usually the agent that we see getting compromised. We can see the distribution. So this is the distribution to the site is based on 7% of IP and 92% on the actual, the domain name of the actual site that was previously hosted. But this is just a few indicators that I can go to. So since we got such a short time to really show you the impact of Infinity SOC, I'm going to show you how we use Infinity SOC to look at different types of indicators. So I've selected a few. These are all random type of indicators. Now I can search up to 18 indicators at any point in time. The indicators that I've chosen here are recent indicators that I've seen some, really malicious activity from different types of attacks. So it gives you a summary screen to say, these are all the indicators you've just popped into me. And you can see here that are all pretty much high confidence levels. So we know about these indicators. And you can see that, they fall into different types of family, from generic type of malware to FloxF to 4plex to even crypto miners. We even got more down here where they go into, other different like your Drydex and your tsunami type of attacks. These are all ranging from URLs to specific domain names, and even I've put in here some hashes in there. So let's take a look at the hash, right? So this is a file that we've seen before. We've actually put it through our emulation service, and we can tell you everything that we know about this specific file. So you can see here, this file is distributed using an XLS format, which is an Excel spreadsheet. We can see all of the file names that have been used to distribute this specific infection. We can see the network activity. Now, what makes this really interesting is that you've got, traffic that is benign. I could go and investigate all the benign domains within it. I can investigate them all, or I can just investigate the actual domains that have actually hosted these files previously. So I can go into each of these and actually look through them. You'll probably ask the question is, why is it trying to connect out to Microsoft? Now that's a tactic that the attackers use. They want to hide the malicious traffic in between benign traffic, good traffic that we'll normally see on a day-to-day basis, right? So they try to mix some of that to kind of divert our attention to think that maybe it's not entirely malicious. So that's why you're seeing some benign traffic in there. Now, you can see all the DNS resolutions. There's 22 domains that have actually been requested out and have actually hosting this specific file. And then you've got how it was actually distributed. So, which makes sense, right? Because if you receive an email with a link, or you receive an email that has got a specific file, like in this case, we've got an Excel spreadsheet inside. It could be compressed, it could be open. We will show you everything we know about it. And we know that the email subject is actually telling you that it's an email, it's an invoice that's just been sent to someone. So if they were really clever, they would have picked the list of people that they were targeting, specifically in the finance industry. So this attack basically sends out emails, people open up those emails, they download the actual Excel spreadsheet, and it downloads a payload onto their device, which then starts to request out to all of these domains to see if there's anything else that would work to infect that host. So it tells you everything about this. And then finally, we've got this section here where we talk about the actual type of malware. So this is obviously Drydex. Drydex has had a huge footprint. This is where we've seen Drydex infection across the globe. The actual timeline is showing you the type of traffic that we've seen going towards the domains that in question that are trying to download this specific file. And you can see that so far there's been around 2,238 connections that have successfully made and connected up to one of those vulnerable types of sites. And then we can see that the attack is predominantly distributed via email. So emails are sent across to all different types of people within the organization in order to target them to be enticed to click on those links. Now, from all the information that you have here, the analysts always will turn to look at if there's anything further or if they need to understand a little bit more about the attack. So what we do is we've taken our deep learning algorithms. So our deep learning algorithms will then go and investigate the open source intelligence community. Open source intelligence means that it's data that is out there that we can actually go and find out about, public addresses, domain names, etc. All of that type of information, any write-ups that has been done that's referring to this specific hash. So what we've done is we crawled through the whole of the internet, and we've given you a couple of references here. We got 2 tweets that reference this specific hash in it. So if I have to go and click into this Twitter feed, I will get a link over here that pushes me out to Malware Bazaar. And in Malware Bazaar, if I do a quick search using Control F, because I'm just looking for this specific indicator here. So let's pick this one here. I will copy that there, and I'll go into my link over here, do a Control F, because I want to quickly find it as soon as possible. So let's see if we can find it here. So not having much success in that. Let's try this again, maybe just shortening the actual signature here. Or we can actually go ahead and look for that specific indicator. So if I search in there, it looks like they actually haven't picked up anything, or they've removed it. Looks like it was actually tagged into something here. So if I look at the other information that I have here, so let's see what other current information do we have. So if I go into the links here and I'll look at Nadar and see what Nadar has spoken about. He's pointing out to the same. So there's 2 references. It looks like they've pulled that off. So we can even look at the references here. They've got, the browser, they've got specific files that are talking to Alien Vault, where they've actually done a write-up. And then over here, we've got obviously different types of information pointing to that specific ones. Actually, some of them here, you can actually see some of the files that are mentioned in there, the Excel spreadsheets. So this gives the analyst the ability to go and search for those specific incidents and be confident that whatever we're telling them is actually, in fact, going to reinforce why we want to block that. So once I understand that perspective, the next thing I need to do is deal with the infection. And Checkpoint gives you the ability to do that. So I'm clicking now into the Incidents tab. I go into Recommended Actions, where you can actually download the actual agent from our CloudGuard agent, right? Which is basically our endpoint solution, sandblast agent, right? So what you can do is download a lightweight version of that. That lightweight version is essentially just going to be all of the modules that we require in order to remediate that actual device. So you can either use that for Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. You can also go and look at all the raw logs that you have within your smart event. So you can query the actual smart log, and it will take you straight into a filter. That filter will show you all of the victims' internal addresses that we've privatized, as well as maybe the machine names for those victims. Once you get a hold of that victim, you download the agent, you run it on the actual device. It gives you a free 7-day license in order to remediate that device, and then it starts to pull out a forensics report. Now, that forensics report will be available on the actual machine that's been infected, that was the victim, and it would look something similar to this. So just to go briefly and just give you a snapshot of what that forensics report would look like, you will have a full report on everything that it's tried to do on the machine. It's investigated all the different types of categories of steps that they use within the MITRE ATT&CK framework, whether it's trying to do privileged escalation, whether it tries to encrypt the data. It basically shows you in each of those different steps. That file can then be printed out, and you can share it with your management or with your leadership to show you that, with working with Infinity SOC and in going through all of those machines and removing those infections, you've actually removed a lot of the risk to the actual organization itself. Now, these are just a few of the indicators that I've gone through. What if you find an actual file? So the next thing that we give you is the ability to take a file off a machine that has no known information or intelligence on. You're still worried about whether that file, because it hasn't done anything, what would happen if someone ran it? Or what if it was on a time clock and it started to initiate the execution of that file? So you can take that file and actually upload it into Infinity SOC. You pick the file that you want to analyze, and from within here, we will do an emulation. We'll interact with that file and we'll give you all the information that we know of what it's trying to do. And as you can see, there's been a number of different types of files that have been uploaded previously. Some of them are showing malicious behavior. So we actually give you the ability to go ahead and investigate to see if there's anything else being seen, because we know that it's malicious. Maybe someone else has spoken about that specific attack in one of their articles. And then from here, we've got this tool called IOC management. Now, IOC management is essentially indicators of compromise management, right? If I go into investigate and I put in a whole bunch of indicators that I've used or seen previously, these could be indicators that I've collectively picked out from a specific attack that I'm currently following. I can do a search on those specific specific indicators. Now that I've investigated all of these indicators, I could choose that the top 5 indicators here, they are really huge risk to my organization. So I can go ahead and actually update IOC management. Now, IOC management is a once set up and then manage all from Infinity SOC. It's basically based on our custom intelligence feeds, which all your gateways have the capability to do that, the checkpoint gateways. But essentially, this is not just for checkpoint gateways. You can basically use the IOC management with other third-party intelligence feeds if they're able to take those feeds into the actual gateways. And what that means is once I've updated the actual list here in preventing these indicators that I've just analyzed, I can put which blade I wanted to block on, severity as critical. I can even put a date. So in 30 days from now, I'll get an alert to tell me that they're going to remove these indicators automatically, so that you can go ahead and maybe update with more recent type of indicators fetched from your third-party intelligence feeds. Once I update that, it automatically tells me that I've updated those 4 indicators. And then I go to a central console where I can see all of the indicators that are currently being blocked automatically by the gateways. So for example, a customer of mine, when the SolarWinds attack was primarily going through, what actually happened there is they took those indicators and they put them straight into IOC management, because even though they didn't have or didn't know of any SolarWinds infrastructure within their organization, they didn't want to take that chance. So what they did is they put a SolarWinds feed of all the IOCs, put it straight into the indicators of management, and basically started blocking them straight out, right? So IOC is quite a powerful tool to use in any of those sort of scenarios. Now, our final tool that brings everything together is called brand protection. And I know I'm running out of time, but I quickly just want to give you a little bit of an outline of what it actually does. So you will configure all of your domains, your web pages that you own, because your web pages are attacked, whether it is because you have a database with all your customer that logs into and does some specific orders, or there's some sort of information that attackers would find valuable. So they are attacking your websites. They want to maybe deface your brand, or they want to, let's take an example like Nike. They want to sell their gray market material out there, so they hijack the actual real websites that belong to Nike or Burberry and impersonate them so that they get customers buying their gray market stuff. And obviously that's bad for the Nike brand. That's bad for any sort of brand out there. So what we typically do is we basically run web crawlers. We look at the page, we look at the content, we look at the logo, we look at the data that we know, all the intelligence that we know about your specific domain name, your URL, the type of traffic that's going towards it. Have you ever hosted your domains on IP addresses that are now categorized as malicious? So we give you a high, medium, low sort of traffic light protocol system to say, the low incidence could be anything as simple as something small changed on your content of your website, but we're raising the alarm, we're raising the alert for you to go in and double check whether someone's actually got a change control and has done content change. Or a medium risk could be someone is hosting a site that looks exactly like yours. It's got the same content, the look, the feel, everything, but it's on different IP infrastructure. And it could be that you're not aware of that your web server teams are migrating from your your local data centers into the cloud, and they're actually running both at the same site. So that could alert you to a medium risk, meaning that there's nothing malicious that we know about this, but there's impersonation, and that's where we wanted to confirm whether it is something that we should be dealing with or not. Which then brings me to the high focused ones. These are the ones that you need to spend your time on because someone is trying to impersonate your site. I had a customer that actually had that happen to them, and what was happening was they were cloning their specific website. They had a username and password that they were basically collecting all the credentials from all the users by going to that website and then redirecting them once the login failed to the real customer website, but they already had the username and password, so the job was already done. Now, how did they investigate this? And I quickly just want to go through that. So for example, if I look at Microsoft, Office 365 is so predominantly being hit recently. So I want to look at 365, and there's a couple of medium risks here. So let's see what this could mean. So we got something that looks like Microsoft 365. Let's see if there's any more. Oh, there's a couple more here. So let's just go and click on this one. You can see that this is not Microsoft 365, right? It's saying that it's a phishing campaign, trying to, getting people to log into their account, which is to do credential theft. We actually spin up an actual container. That container allows you to interact safely with that specific, site. And as you can see here, I just want to cancel that. It actually takes me to this URL, which actually shows up as being 365. That is not 365. So I could try and just, use any sort of emails that's out there to try and see what it will do once I actually put something in here. So I'm interacting live with it. It's not infecting my machine, and I have no concern about that. So because it's spinning up something in the cloud that gets destroyed afterwards. And as you can see here, it's just redirected me to Outlook, right? So, but they already have my username and password. So job's done. So this is kind of the type of information you can interact with. You can even look at it back into Investigate, where you can do further analysis of, what is the site previously? Is it someone that's been compromised? What exactly is going on here? What is the load of traffic going towards it? So in a nutshell, Infinity SOC is a great tool to help your analysts to, narrow down their focus to what are the compromised devices within the infrastructure, why they have been identified as high criticality, and that you need to get them remediated as soon as possible, to understanding through our intelligence and through all the intelligence source that we've made easy to just go and fetch that information, and then the ability to, protect and add and manage those third-party feeds and the brand that you belong to. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sergio. Let's run through a couple of quick questions here. I know we're a little over, but that's okay. It's being recorded. Is this only for Checkpoint supported devices, or can you do other security vendors?
So we currently are focused in using, obviously getting, Checkpoint is integrated into the solution, but we have two sort of answers to this. The first answer is that customers will, normally will have two different variants of firewall within their infrastructure, and we want to get visibility to that. So what we do today is we use Sandblast Now probes, and that is basically tapping or getting a port mirrored, and we'll be able to see the traffic that would be going to those third-party gateways. So we're able to get that visibility and to, alert you on what we're seeing as malicious activity. You could then take the next step, which is then to take those indicators and to push those indicators out to those third-party gateways using our IRC management. The second component is that it's not in the near-term roadmap, but the long-term roadmap for supporting third-party infrastructure is on the roadmap, and we will be doing that in the future.
Okay. Will a tag mechanism be available for incidents kind of like it's available for brand protection?
Yes, so in brand protection, we do have the capability for you to tag. As everyone would know, looking for, DNS impersonation, DNS hijacking, all of those sort of things do have a little bit of false positives in there, and no one really can manage that perfectly. So we have the ability for you to tag the traffic to either prioritize that traffic or to say, it's a false positive or it's an incident that you have open. So we have the ability to tag, and then you have the ability to manage each of those events that you've tagged into specific categories. In the future, we'll have the ability to add tags because we understand that when you're dealing with an incident, that you want to basically tag maybe a case number to that incident, and maybe you want to add some notes that you've done investigation and you know about that, and maybe that user hasn't been able to supply the machine in order to remediate it. So we are going to be doing that. It is roadmapped, and it is something that we obviously are, it's top of our list.
Will it be possible to manually declare an asset as a DNS server?
Classification of assets, we automatically classify that. I showed you this right at the beginning. You see, we can classify that. We actually classified this as incident as coming from a DNS server. So the ability to obviously confirm that is to either allow the actual real address is, because you can see here we give it a unique identifier, or to use the mechanism to look at the query within your smart event. Now, to answer that, to go a little bit further in that, these obfuscated IDs that you see here are all internal IP addresses. That's sensitive information. You will have the ability to go into each of your gateways and to turn that off. But only you as the customer who has access to those gateways will be able to switch off that mechanism, which means that we would then see the real IP address. But the classification of a DNS server, we automatically do that, as you can see within our incident events here.
I think you might have covered this, but just to hit the point again, is this only for gateways, or can you ingest endpoint data also?
Currently, the solution is currently looking at just network security, so our gateways. However, we're going to add the telemetry from our endpoint solutions, our Sandblast agent solutions, as well as our cloud and other sort of checkpoint solutions that we have out there. So the goal is to really match that XDR capability to have all the telemetry from all of your different types of checkpoint solutions to be all pulled into Infinity SOC, and then to act on that telemetry.
Okay. How do you link the gateways or non-checkpoint devices to the IOC custom feeds?
So if I go quickly into IOC management, there's an actual document that we've got that you can actually go look at, an SK that you can go into it. But also we've got here, there's sort of two feeds that are managed on the actual gateways. They're essentially CSV files, then they get updated via the IOC management. And that would be the same for the actual third parties. If they can support that, then we can actually push that out.
Okay, great. I think that covers it. So, Sergio, thank you very much. Great information. We know this is a newer product and a lot of people may not be using it yet, but I thought it was very timely with all the scary stuff that is going on out in the world right now. There's some very sophisticated attacks. So wanted to give the opportunity to customers who are using it a bit of a deeper dive, but also want to offer everyone here a 90-day evaluation of this product just to get the ability to health check their network. The SolarWinds hack is very sophisticated and there's a lot of scary things going on right now. So please take advantage of that. I just launched a poll here. You can let me know if you're interested in that and I will make sure I get that to your account team, or you can talk to them directly. But, a 90-day eval, just to look at your environment and make sure you're safe. That's what this is all about. So let me see, is there anything?
I think one of the things to understand how simple it is to actually set this up. So for example, if you have checkpoint gateways, it's just a matter of having your antivirus enabled, and then to enable the data to be shared with us so that we can actually interrogate the data and get that data, those flows and events into Infinity SOC. And that is really just a few clicks, and within a couple of hours, you'll start to see events appearing within the actual portal. So it's a very simple onboarding process.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, let me see here. So I will send a follow-up email with any reference content and a recording of this session. Our next webinar will be in 2 weeks, and so you will see the invitation for that soon. But with that, we'll let you go. Thanks again, Sergio, and everyone. Please enjoy your day. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone.